Can we discuss the thorny topic of refunds versus credit notes? Where do you guys stand? Seamus, do you want to take this?
Yeah. Well, let's be clear. I wouldn't say that we all have identical views. Like, again, we are three people who've all run our own businesses, and we all have our nuanced view. Look, I suppose I start off with the basic principle that if you can't give somebody the service you said you were going to give them, they should have their money back. And whether that's in travel, outside of travel, wherever, I think that customer relationship is key. So I'll be honest, I would echo the likes of David Speakman and Kane Perry of Vivid Travel, who say customers, if they want their money, should have their money. So let me just say, that is my basic principle. I think we should always adhere to that principle. But without a shadow of a doubt, look, this is difficult because who has got the money to give back to the customer is difficult in our industry. Yes, if you've given your money to a travel agent, that travel agent's given that money to a tour operator. That tour operator has given some of that money to an airline or some of that money to a hotel in a prepayment. Well, the idea that the travel agent can within 14 days get the money back from the tour operator, who then can get the money back from the airline, or who can get the money back from the hotel. Yeah, the package travel regulations weren't built for that. They weren't built for everybody doing that all at once. I do think, though, that somehow customers should be able to get their money back if they want it back. I think that principle is a key principle. And I think governments have to need to figure out a way to do that. Now, they may not be able to, but look, if I was a business, if I'm running my business, and I'm invested in various businesses which do have this problem, and no, they are offering customers vouchers. And I think, look, a good idea, look, but there are pros and cons, because fundamentally, if you're offering a customer voucher, you're asking the customer to fund your business, to give you working capital. It might be the only way you have of getting cash at the moment. But
Steve and I have talked about that same subject, because I was going through a similar problem. And you, Steve, talked to me about credit notes and what's the difference and what does that mean? Do you want to expand on what you've been?
Yeah. Any credit note or any voucher you give is in danger of ruining your relationship with that customer. That's just the bottom line. But if you don't survive today, you won't have that customer in the future anyway. So you've got to look at your own personal circumstances and say, right, how do I survive today? And it probably means you have to be unfair. Do you treat all customers the same? Or do you say, right, okay, who are the tour operators or partners I really need to protect because they're the long-term, big volume deliverers? You might have to have a different deal for them compared with people who've only ever worked with you once and might never come back anyway. It's a very difficult balance, but what you need to do is understand, as Seamus says, this is not free money. This is an interest-free loan that has to be repaid at some point. The benefit of a credit note is it retains, in the UK at least, the financial protection from ATOL. So, for example, if you gave a voucher, it's not 100% clear. If you get the right format and give a credit note, and you then later fail, which some companies will, that customer is still protected under the ATOL scheme. And I think you've got to get the legals right to make sure your customers are protected as much as you can. The other key aspect here is how we're seeing a divergence of the power of the lobbying of the airlines. And the airlines have lobbied very hard at a European level. And a lot of countries are varying their rules for airlines, saying, yes, you can give credit notes. That gives a massive problem for travel agents, because quite often now, under ATOL rules, they are the principal, and more importantly, they're the ones that have collected the money from the customer. So if the customer does say, I've had enough of this and I'm going to do a credit card refund, it will them and their trust funds will get hit. So everybody argues, trust funds protect us, trust funds protect the customer. No, they don't. because say it's £1,000 holiday and £500 of that was for a flight, that flight has gone out of the trust fund to an airline. If that airline then gives a credit note back, how do you refund £1,000 from the trust fund when you've only got £500 left in it? So it does not protect the customer in these circumstances. So nothing is perfect. It's better protection than nothing, but nothing is perfect. And that's why we do need government rules across the whole chain, because if it's one side and airlines are allowed to do it, when customers think they can do refunds, it will literally take down half the UK travel industry, because it's not the commission you're giving back, it's the entire flight cost you have no longer got. And that's why it's such a big quandary for us.
Yeah, and as Seamus was saying, you know, everyone doing this at the same time is actually a big problem. So thanks for that, guys. Yeah, and now I'd like to...
I was saying the government does need to come in and create some clean rule, because when this all ends, let's say when we're outside of our houses again, back to those halcyon days, we can't have that some parts of the distribution have got money, some money is over here, some money over here, and nobody can figure out how do you restart anything. There needs to be a clear position of this is the starting point. And then, sorry, just another thing as well, just for small businesses. Businesses also need to think of how they're going to account for some of these things. So if they do decide to give give credit notes or vouchers, they do need to remember these are still liabilities. So when you use that money to run your business, you still will have that customer next year who's going to come back and say, I now want that product or service. You will have to deliver it. There will be a cost. There will be no more revenue. Your profits for next year could look quite low because you're suddenly having to provide all those products to that customer with no revenue in next year's period because you've taken it in this year.
But so, surely there is things that companies can do themselves to actually not face the same situation again in the future. Government, yes, we need the government rules, of course, but surely there is stuff that the travel agent.
Yeah, but if you as a supplier, decide now I'm not refunding the money to the customer, I'm giving them a voucher, and then over the next 6 months you use that money to keep your business running, sometime that voucher or credit note gets presented. You then have to supply that service or the value of that note. There is that liability. So you just bear in mind that actually what you're doing is you're pushing that problem into next year in terms of your profitability as a business. And it's just one of those things to be very careful on the accounting of all this type of stuff.
Yeah, very, very.
To come back to your question, what can travel agents or partners do? As we come out of this, I think you've got to look at very carefully how you pay people and how you use protection on those payments. So for example, some of the large OTAs pay all the airlines with what they call virtual credit cards. And that allows them to do a recharge. So when Thomas Cook went down and Monarch went down, a good example was on the beach, we were able to reclaim all of the money they had paid to that airline from that to that airline's merchant clearer under MasterCard rules. So looking at how you pay people and trying to pay as much as possible using virtual cards or real corporate cards to give you that recharge capability is very important. And also when we're coming out of this, you've got to look at who is a threat to you in the chain. So for example, bed banks, which agents pay on departure, they may say, oh, it's not our problem. The customer's had their holiday. We've paid the money to the bed bank. Everything's great. What happens if that bed bank doesn't pay the hotelier? Because quite often they take 60 days, 90 days credit. And if that bed bank did go bust and the money was owed to the hoteliers, don't expect them to let your customers back in the door without some sort of compensation. It will cause an almighty mess. So therefore, everybody's got to look at harder, who do they pay money to? What is their financial security? How do they get a reclaim if the worst comes to the worst?
Okay.